In June 1940, a triumphant Adolf Hitler arrived in Paris.
He's standing here looking around. This is mine. I'm now in charge. I've done it.
The Nazis had 4 years, stripping Paris of its artistic treasure.
Hitler and the Nazis sent 30,000 rail cars of loot back to Germany. Much remains missing, including artworks by Picasso, Renoir, and Matisse, worth millions today.
It's not just art, is it? It's furniture, it's grand pianos, it's objects, it's anything that can be of use, can be of value. Clear that.
At the end of World War II, the Allies made a series of shocking discoveries. Hidden in trains, bunkers, and deep underground, they found mountains of stolen treasure.
That must have been like going into Aladdin's cave.
Hitler and the Nazis had looted an entire continent and committed the greatest theft in history. Now, a team of investigators is opening up cold case files of Nazi plunder still missing today.
We're talking about things that are worth tens of millions of dollars.
Robert Edsel is an expert in Nazi-looted treasure.
Hundreds of thousands of objects are still missing. Well, we have a lot of digging to do.
Joining him is Second World War historian James Holland.
None of this was really his. He'd just taken it.
And investigative journalist Connor Woodman.
And this is a genuine treasure hunt. We dig a hole in the ground and we find those cases.
Their mission, uncover new clues.
Oh gosh, this is it.
Explore Nazi hideouts.
Whoever built this brick wall really didn't want anyone to get through to the other side.
Find out how the treasure was stolen and where it might be now.
What a piece of history.
The Monuments Men Foundation has found and returned dozens of Nazi-looted treasures to their rightful owners. At its Dallas HQ, Foundation President Robert Edsel briefs art restitution expert Dorothee Schneider on a new case.
Paris, treasure chest of the Nazis. They arrive in June 1940, and it begins the most premeditated looting operation. They know where these works of art are.
Yep, they emptied the galleries and art collections, private ones as well as public ones, of masterpieces, furniture, anything.
They've got trains coming into France empty and leaving loaded with billions of dollars worth of stolen objects.
And so many things are still missing.
And that's our focus.
In May 1940, Hitler unleashed the Blitzkrieg on Western Europe. In just 6 weeks, his armies conquered the Netherlands, Belgium, France, and the city he considered the ultimate prize, Paris. Robert and historian James Holland begin their hunt by retracing one of the most infamous sightseeing trips in history, Adolf Hitler's tour of Paris, on June the 28th, 1940.
Here we are driving in the footsteps of Hitler on that famous, infamous tour of Paris. It's amazing looking at that film footage. Paris is so quiet. 80% of the population have already evacuated. He's almost got a ghost town.
And it's here that he stands up, wanting to have a look for himself. I mean, the idea, there's no security, there's the perfect chance for someone to take a shot at him, but he's just oblivious to those kinds of risks. I think he's so mesmerized and lost in the moment of what this visit is all about.
Yeah, and I'm still so struck by the idea that Hitler's come not with his military commanders, but with Arne Breker.
Yeah, a great sculptor, someone who generates good art in Hitler's view.
Yeah.
He's got Speer with him, his favorite architect.
You know, it just says, this is not a victory tour, this is an art and architecture tour.
The dictator made 9 stops, including the Arc de Triomphe, the Opera House, Napoleon's tomb, and most famously, the Trocadero, overlooking the Eiffel Tower.
Pretty amazing thing, huh?
Oh yeah, really just dominates the city, doesn't it?
For Hitler, a man who considered himself an artistic genius, the visit was an opportunity not just to admire, but to dominate as well. This film footage, some of the most famous and chilling shot during the entire war, was powerful propaganda. It said, "Paris belongs to me."
He's standing here looking around. This is mine. I'm now in charge. I've done it.
At the end of the tour, Hitler remarked, "I have considered destroying Paris, but when we are through with Berlin, Paris will be a shadow." Rather than destroy, Hitler plundered.
Hitler's got the entire damn city to himself.
Yes.
And what's going to play out over the next 4 years? It's the fleecing of this country from its artistic treasures.
Yeah, the Germans, when they come to France, they're like kids in a sweet shop. They just clear it out.
On June the 30th, 1940, Hitler issued an order safeguarding all artworks in France. It was a euphemism. Wholesale plunder was about to begin. The French government had long feared a German invasion and began emptying Paris's greatest museum, the Louvre, as early as 1938. By the time Hitler arrived, its treasures were carefully hidden across the country. But other valuables, especially private art collections, became prime targets.
They've got them lined up one after another, backing up trucks, emptying galleries, targeting works of art that are going to go to Hitler's collection and other collections. It's an industrial scale looting.
But it's not just art, is it? It's furniture, it's grand pianos, anything that can be of use, can be of value, clear that.
Over the next 4 years, the Nazis stripped the city's great collections bare. Thousands of masterpieces and other irreplaceable treasures are still missing today. The team's mission: find out what happened and see if anything can be recovered.
We're on Rue La Boétie. This is an important part of the city. We're just a couple of blocks off the Champs-Élysées. But in 1940, this street housed some of the great galleries of the dealer collectors in Paris, including the Paul Rosenberg Gallery at 21 Rue La Boétie.
Rosenberg was a legendary dealer on the Paris art scene who represented 3 of the city's masters: Henri Matisse, Georges Braque, and Pablo Picasso. The men were close friends. Picasso lived in an apartment above the gallery and called Rosenberg Rosie.
Doesn't look like much now, but all of the wood paneling and the trim is the original paneling that was here in 1940 when the Nazis came and emptied this gallery.
In the months before the invasion, Rosenberg moved much of his collection to England and the United States. But he was unable to remove everything before the German army entered Paris, and dozens of masterpieces were stolen.
5 by Degas, 1 by Cézanne, but 38 by Picasso, 9 by Matisse. Overall, it's 111 different paintings or drawings. Now, in the world of art today, some of these paintings are worth $20, $30 million. But let's just figure that each work of art here is worth $5 million. $5 million times 111 different works of art, you get to $550 million, or let's call it $500 million. The value is just staggering.
70 years later, Robert wants to find out what happened to the missing masterpieces. His hunt continues in Washington, D.C. at the National Archives, home to a collection of albums captured by the American Army at the end of the war. Known as the ERR albums, they include photographs and information about looted artworks. The albums were prepared specifically for Hitler, the first given to him on his birthday. Today, they are never put on public display, but Robert has secured rare access.
It's amazing looking at this incredible part of history.
These are the best of looted art, and they wanted Hitler to see, look what we got for you, and he could choose what he wanted.
Right.
What I find extraordinary is that these are absolutely gorgeous items. If you look, the calligraphy is beautiful, the pictures are stunning. It wasn't just documenting it, they were proud of it.
These albums document the theft, exactly what they took and who they took it from.
Robert wants to know if they contain any information about the looted Rosenberg art.
And here's what you're looking for, the paintings that were taken from Paul Rosenberg. This is an inventory card for Van Gogh.
Not just any Van Gogh. This, of course, is a self-portrait where he's damaged his ear. One of the most important and most valuable works of art in the world.
PR tells us it was taken from Paul Rosenberg.
PR 144.
Paul Rosenberg hid the 1889 masterpiece in a bank vault before the war. But French informants alerted the Germans to the secret stash, and it was seized. Also included is the name of the Nazi who laid claim to the Van Gogh.
Down here, written in ink, is HG, Hermann Goering.
We know who that is, Hermann Goering.
Reichsmarshal Hermann Goering was the flamboyant head of the Luftwaffe, the German Air Force, and second only to Hitler in the Nazi hierarchy. His position brought him enormous wealth and a growing art collection. When the Nazis captured Paris, Goering exploited the opportunity to acquire new plunder. But owning a Van Gogh was a risky move.
This is exactly the kind of degenerate work of art that Hitler wanted removed from Germany to keep from spoiling the minds of the people there.
Hitler despised post-impressionist and modern art. He declared it un-German, the result of growing Jewish and communist influence in Europe.
Hitler said about Van Gogh, anyone that paints a sky green and the meadow blue is defective.
Hitler banned so-called degenerate art in 1937. 2 years later, more than 4,000 works were burned in Berlin. And thousands more would be quietly claimed in the years to come by high-ranking Nazis, including Hermann Goering. So why was Goering collecting forbidden art? And could the answer lead Robert to the missing Rosenberg collection? The team is investigating treasures looted from Paris during the 4-year Nazi occupation.
It's an industrial scale looting.
But it's not just art, is it? Anything that can be of use, can be of value, clear that.
While Robert is on the trail of stolen masterpieces, James turns his attention to looting of a different kind. In March 1942, the Nazis began rounding up and deporting the city's Jewish population to concentration camps. The mass expulsions triggered another looting operation, one that dwarfed their art gallery thefts. To find out more, James Holland is meeting with Sarah Gensberger, a historian shining new light on a dark and forgotten chapter of the occupation.
So Sarah, I'm looking at this and I'm seeing a piano being taken in or out of a truck, and there's a German panzer soldier there. What's going on here?
So here it's a very normal scene during the war in Paris. They are moving from the truck some pianos taken at Jewish apartments. In 1942, they decided that because the final solution had started, they will take all the stuff left by the Jews who were deported or the Jews escaping deportation.
The final solution was the Nazi plan to exterminate the Jewish people. Across Paris, thousands of Jewish homes were left wide open to the Nazis, who turned looting them into an industry. Truckloads of art, furniture, valuables, and even housewares were seized.
How many apartments and houses are we talking about?
Almost 40,000 apartments in Paris.
And they just cleared them all out?
They clear them out.
Originally, the Nazis planned to give these possessions to German settlers in conquered territories. But when the tide of war turned and the Allies began bombing German cities, the plunder from Paris had a new function.
After the bombing, it was also a way to compensate people in German cities with new things to settle their home.
I'm a German family. I live in Hamburg, and my house has been blown up, and I haven't got any furniture. Well, that's not a problem, because we've got some furniture coming from France.
Exactly.
Once sorted, the looted goods were crated up for shipment to Germany.
This looks like something out of Raiders of the Lost Ark, doesn't it? I mean, these huge stacks of crates.
It's sorted by use, so all these crates are kitchen utensils.
That's amazing. And look at these, so toys. I mean, it's heartbreaking, isn't it, to see this, but it does underline the fact that the Germans are taking absolutely everything from these properties.
The apartments were empty, but I mean empty, empty, empty.
I've got a report here on furniture and household goods looted from Jewish properties, just up to the end of 1943, and I've got to say the figures are staggering. They managed to steal the best part of 1 million cubic meters worth of furniture and household goods. And then this was shipped out on nearly 23,500 wagons, which equated to 589 freight trains. So that's well over more than one a day, disappearing out of Paris, stuffed full of stolen furniture. The next stop was Germany.
All looted items were meticulously recorded by the Nazis. Among the thousands of Jewish households victimized by looting was that of Jean-Pierre Hahn, a prominent local diamond merchant. Investigative journalist Connor Woodman has come to Paris to meet his granddaughter Elizabeth and hear her family story.
Elizabeth, hi. Connor.
Hey.
So nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Number 11B, where your grandfather had his apartment.
Amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
They moved here in 1934.
And escaped.
And escaped when the Germans came.
Wow. Well, I'd love to hear more about it. Should we grab a drink?
That would be great.
Talk some more?
When war broke out, Hahn feared the worst, but he couldn't leave the country.
It was 1940, so my grandfather was 44 years old, and you could be conscripted into the army until the age of 45. And so they said, you can't leave. He begged my grandmother to go through without him with the children, and she refused. She said, we stay together as a family.
After the French surrender, Hahn knew they had to escape the country as soon as possible or face deadly consequences at the hands of the Nazis.
So how did your family eventually escape from France?
They went through Spain and they got out.
So they get out to Spain, board a boat, head to New York, presumably traveling light.
Yeah.
So a lot of stuff gets left behind.
Yes. I think they definitely assumed that they would be coming back for everything.
In the rush to escape, the family was forced to abandon paintings, antique furniture, and handmade carpets. And Hahn was also compelled to leave behind the lifeblood of the family business.
What about the diamonds? He's a diamond merchant, he's going to have diamonds.
Right. There's this very famous story in our family about this bag of diamonds that he didn't want to take with him because they could be taken when they got to the border.
Of course.
Hahn couldn't take the bag of diamonds into exile for fear they would be confiscated at the Spanish border, but he refused to simply leave them behind to be seized by the Nazis. Out of time and out of options, he rolled the dice on an ingenious plan to save the family fortune. Journalist Connor Woodman is investigating the story of prominent Paris diamond merchant Jean-Pierre Hahn, whose family was forced to abandon their home and personal treasures to Nazi looters.
It's June 1940, and Paris is falling into the hands of the Nazis. Like thousands of other Parisians, Jean-Pierre Hahn is working out how he can get his young family to safety. The problem is what to do with his precious diamonds. He can't risk having them fall into the hands of the Nazis, so he comes up with a cunning plan. he melts some grease in the bottom of a jar. And when the grease is liquid, he drops the diamonds in one by one. When it sets again, the diamonds are hidden inside, and he gives the jar to his friend and asks him to hide it for him. He vows that one day he'll return to collect his diamonds, and then he takes his family and flees. Now all he can do is hope for the best.
Hahn's granddaughter Elizabeth recalls what happened next.
After the war, my grandfather did come back to see this friend, and he said, you know, you by any chance have that bottle that I asked you to hold for me during the war? And he said, oh yes, I think it's somewhere, and dug it up out of the back of a cupboard, and my grandfather melted it, and there were all the diamonds. He washed off the grease and told his friend, take a few. Thank you for keeping these for me. It's an amazing story.
Wow, it's a little glimmer of humanity.
Absolutely.
You know, when I guess you could have lost all faith in humanity having been through what he went through.
Hahn's quick thinking saved a fortune in diamonds from falling into Nazi hands. But the family had been forced to leave many other valuables behind in their home, easy pickings for the Nazis' well-oiled looting operation.
When they did finally come back to their apartment in Paris, it was pretty much emptied out. They stole any silver they could, all of the religious artifacts, the menorah, paintings and carpets, furniture as well.
In the 1950s, the Hahn family recovered these two artworks when they were spotted at an auction by her great-uncle. But other treasures remain missing, and Elizabeth is continuing the search. She's tracked down the original Nazi records detailing what items were stolen from her family.
That's your family name up there in the corner.
This is the inventory number, the HAH, and then a number.
So we know from these cards that there were 13 paintings, 3 carpets taken from your grandparents'
from that apartment.
possession.
Yeah.
It's quite possible then that a lot of that stuff is just still out there, circulating in
I guess so.
flea markets and...
I hope not.
More than 70 years after they were seized.
Well, with all the records and corresponding artwork, we know what we're looking for.
Connor is going to search for the Hahn family's stolen treasures. As Connor begins his investigation, Robert Edsel continues his hunt for masterpieces looted from the Paul Rosenberg collection. He's come to the Jeu de Paume Museum, which the Nazis used as a clearinghouse for the greatest artworks looted from France. A frequent visitor was Hermann Goering, who came to select pieces for his own collection. The Nazis brazenly photographed these visits, and those photos are now the property of the National Library of France.
These photographs are amazing. You can imagine Goering walking in and seeing hundreds of paintings that have been hastily hung on the wall. His eyes must have been bulging out of his head thinking about the possibilities of adding to his collection.
He was so greedy for works of art.
Robert is here to examine the photos to see if they offer any clues to Goering's mysterious interest in degenerate art.
This photograph was taken in November 1940. It was the first time that Goering came, first of a lot of visits, because he came so many times.
He's supposed to be knocking Great Britain out of the war, and he's spending time here picking out works of art for his own collection.
During the war, Goering made over 20 trips to the Jeu de Paume, auspicious occasions for the Nazis on staff, who treated the Reichsmarschall like royalty.
You see the formality, this whole entourage walking through, but then as they move into these back rooms, now you start to see these photographs where there's champagne sitting out on the table.
Yes, and you saw the cigar too here. So it was really that if Goering was in a showroom and wanted to make some shopping, no?
Goering selected an estimated 600 artworks from the Jeu de Paume, most by the old masters. However, some photographs show Goering looking at post-impressionist and modern art, the kind despised by Hitler and officially banned from Germany.
The gallery of Paul Rosenberg was absolutely looted, and so the paintings came to the Jeu de Paume.
The Rosenberg collection and other so-called degenerate art was kept in a gallery the French called the Room of the Martyrs.
You can recognize different painters. You have
Picasso,
Koschka.
These degenerate works, Hitler looked at them like they were going to spoil people's mind.
Yes, of course.
And yet here Goering is mesmerized by these two masterpieces by Matisse, who was, of course, considered by Hitler one of the degenerate artists. And this fellow, who was actually holding the paintings, appears in almost all of the photographs.
Bruno Lose. He was an historian of art, so Goering chose him as a counselor, artistic counselor.
Bruno Lose was a Berlin art dealer and member of the Nazi Party. An opportunist with expensive taste, he was sent to Paris in 1940 to put his skills to use sorting through looted art. There he met Goering. The two became fast friends, and it was Lose who arranged the Reichsmarschall's viewings and shady deals.
I don't think there's a photograph we've got here that he's not in. There's another.
He's here too. Lose.
It appears he's a key figure in understanding this whole theft.
Yes, it's true.
To find out what happened to the Rosenberg treasures, Robert needs to know more about the shadowy Bruno Lose. Fine art was not the only target of the Nazis. During 4 years of occupation, they seized thousands of cars, millions of tons of fuel, and even food. They did it all while treating Paris like a holiday playground. To learn more, James is meeting with author Anne Saber, who has written a best-selling book about the Nazi occupation.
Paris was a fun city for German troops, wasn't it? I mean, you know, we've got this booklet here. I mean, it's just fascinating. This is the kind of sort of what's on guide.
And look,
so look at this,
how much is going on.
Cinemas.
It's phenomenal.
The Nazis published a monthly tourist guide for soldiers visiting the city, filled with recommendations for a dizzying array of restaurants, plays, exhibitions, cabarets, and even brothels.
There were 200 brothels. They introduced a new exchange rate, highly favorable, of course, to the Germans, so it was heaven for them to come to Paris.
So you have just got these sort of hordes of soldiers coming in and basically taking over your city.
Precisely. Occupying the soul of the city.
Yeah.
Taking all that was best. But also, at the same time, they're stealing it, and they're looting, and they're taking away everything they can, from high art to children's dolls' houses.
In 1942, the tide of war turned. And Nazi motives for stealing turned from greed to necessity. Vast amounts of fuel, food, and other resources were needed to keep up the fight.
How hard was life, you know, as it progressed?
It was really hard. Not many people had enough to eat. Many people in Paris were reduced to these awful root vegetables that should really be given to the pigs. The Germans had stolen all of the food. They were shipping it back to Germany.
The numbers are staggering. A city that once boasted some 350,000 vehicles on its streets had fewer than 4,500 by the end of the war. Coal for heating became almost impossible to obtain, and a full 20% of the city's food was seized.
They steal all the cars, they steal all the fuel, they steal coal, they steal food. The Germans in Paris, they're like a sort of swarm of locusts, aren't they? They're coming in and just sort of clearing out the whole place, and all that's left are the buildings and the survivors who've managed to sort of hold on.
By and large, I think that's exactly what it was. Yes, they sucked it dry.
Piece by piece, Paris was dismantled and shipped to Germany. And that's where Connor has hunt to find out if it's even possible to track down the personal possessions looted from the Hahn family.
Has the market been here for a long time?
Yes, yes. I always love this market. I love flea markets.
Sharon Adler runs a unique organization.
What kind of things are you looking for in a market like this? What are the sort of giveaways?
It's things like the menorah, for instance.
She helps recover Nazi-looted property and uses it to fund Jewish artists today.
This is not a menorah, but this is for sure, this is Jewish.
Sharon believes a huge amount of looted property has found its way into ordinary flea markets like this one.
Wir wollen mal gucken, aus welchen Jahren ist das hier alles so, zum Beispiel die hier?
30er Jahre, das ist Art Deco.
Ja.
30er Jahre, also meistens alles 30er.
Yeah, it's all from the 30s.
So this is cutlery from the 1930s.
Yes.
There's so much of it. You have to assume some of that has come from a Jewish household. Where do you get it all from?
Alles Deutsche. Ich habe nur Deutsche für.
Ja, wissen Sie, es interessiert uns zum Beispiel auch, wo die Dinge gelandet sind, die mal ehemals in jüdischen Haushalten waren.
Das ist schwer.
Ja.
So now do you think people suspect where this stuff may have come from?
I don't think that most people will be interested in where did it come from and who did it belong.
How much of the stuff that may have been looted during the war do you think is in Germany now?
Oh, that's really hard to say, but I think that every German household has at least a piece, one piece, which once belonged to a Jewish family.
Over the 70 years in between, everything's just got so spread out?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
I see something in there.
Oh, yes, wow.
The Hahn family in Paris, they were missing a menorah. That is unmistakably a menorah, right?
Yes. It says something.
So I wonder if that was the family marking it. Wow. I mean, that is chilling.
Gymnasia.
There is all the evidence that you need.
Yeah.
That there is stuff on this market from Jewish households.
Right, there's no doubt. And no Jewish family would sell it on the market. No, you would inherit it, you would give it from family to family. So the poor thing came from a Jewish family, yes.
Yeah, 100%.
If Sharon is right, random Nazi plunder can be found in flea markets like this all over Germany. But finding something specific that belonged to the Hahn family, paintings, antique furniture, and hand-woven carpets, is much more difficult. The hunt will next take Connor into an extraordinary storage facility. Connor is on the hunt for treasures looted by Nazis from Paris during the Second World War.
I see something in there.
Oh, yes, wow.
The Hahn family in Paris, they were missing a menorah.
The poor thing came from a Jewish family.
Art restitution expert Dorothee Schneider has joined Connor in Berlin to chase a new lead.
So, Dorothy, what is this place we're going to see this afternoon?
It's a place full of treasure from World War II, most of it looted. It's exactly what we were looking for.
In 1945, a specialized Allied unit, the Monuments Men, found mountains of looted treasure scattered all over Europe. Nearly 4 million recovered objects were sorted, identified, and returned to their countries of origin. But despite their best efforts, thousands remained unclaimed. And today, many are kept here.
So this is a storage room for artworks, which was established by the American Allies right after World War II.
This is the Federal Office of Unresolved Property Issues. Run by the German government, it contains a wide variety of objects from the Nazi era, including Hitler's desk and a huge carpet that once belonged to Goering. The staff believe most of these objects were looted, and it's their job to reunite them with the rightful owners. But with little documentation, it's a difficult task. These are the orphans of the greatest theft in history.
Do you think one day you'll find the owners of every painting that you have here?
I don't think so. We have restituted 49 paintings in the last 15 years, but there are still so many gaps in the provenance. This room where we have mostly tapestry, furnitures, carpets.
And have you done a lot of research on carpets?
No, not yet, because they just came in last year.
So you're still receiving stuff now?
Yeah.
There's still stuff coming in?
But unfortunately, we got them without documentation. So we really have to start from the scratch.
Right. When I met the Hahn family in Paris, they were missing 3 carpets.
Back in Paris, Elizabeth Hahn gave Connor copies of the Nazi records of her family's looted carpets. But the written descriptions are brief.
It's really difficult to say, okay, this was lying in the house of this and this person. Only if you are lucky and find on a picture that this is the same like we have in our storage room. It's really difficult.
The lack of photos makes determining whether any of these carpets belong to the Hahn family next to impossible. But when photo evidence does exist, the Office of Unresolved Property can right decades-old wrongs.
So I would like to show you this example, an Italian table from the 16th century.
Oh, is this an original photo of the desk from back in the war years?
Yeah, and a colleague of mine, she called, said, I found this desk doing research. Harry Fult, a Jew in Great Britain where he emigrated.
And were you able to restitute it?
Yes, to the heirs of Harry Fult.
Oh, wow, amazing.
Yeah.
The Unresolved Property database has launched online, meaning anyone can now join in the effort to return looted treasures.
What I really get from my visit here is what a revolving door restitution is, you know, and Helika and her team are still restituting pieces of art now, 70 years after the war has ended. But what's even more amazing is that they're still getting pieces of art sent here now. You know, which in terms of Elizabeth Hahn and her family looking for their missing art pieces, or indeed anyone who believes that they had art stolen from their family during the war, what this place really gives me is a sense of hope.
But before the office can return artworks, they first have to be recovered. To find out what happened to the stolen masterpieces of the Paul Rosenberg collection, Robert has returned to Paris to meet with Philippe Sprang.
Philippe, salut!
A local journalist who's been investigating Nazi art dealer Bruno Lerzer for more than 20 years.
So, what's happening here?
That's where Mr. Bruno Lerzer got himself an apartment in spring in 1942.
He lived here?
He lived here, yes.
Amazing. Well, I want to learn more. Philippe, tell me about this fellow Bruno Lerzer.
He's a shady character. As well, he's an opportunist. So he saw the SS and the Nazi regime is good for him, so he got into it. Afterwards, he went to be the assistant of Goering for his looting.
As Goering's personal art dealer, Lerzer was afforded unique privileges. He wore stylish street clothes instead of the requisite military uniform. He was given a private car, and more.
He's got no shame at all. He goes to the Jeu de Paume and he gets out some stuff to do furniture, some silver, some rugs. He's taking some stuff to furnish his apartment.
Lerzer threw lavish parties, lived the Paris high life, and was known to boast.
During a party, Lerzer was boasting. He said, yes, I was with a stormtrooper of the SS. Yes, I killed Jews with my hand, but that's not true. He was just boasting.
He was a really bad guy.
Lerzer and Goering recognized that degenerate art, even if it was banned by Hitler, still had enormous value.
He was an art dealer. So what art dealers do? Well, art dealers, they wait for opportunities. So what he does, he says, well, Impressionist, well, it's not too much of a Hitler style. The Nazi regime, they rather like old stuff, you know, 17th century and so forth.
Old master paintings.
So Losey makes change Impressionist for all masters.
Bruno Lerzer was part of a black market barter system, secretly trading banned degenerate art for approved works by the old masters that Goering could add to his personal collection. And Hitler's own second-in-command was in on the scheme.
We know now that Goering wasn't that stupid, and he kept some Matisse and exchanged it for some old styles.
So some of these paintings that Hitler considered degenerate, yes, that he'd thrown out of the German museums, yes. Goering didn't have any reservation about capitalizing on those opportunities if he could use them for exchange.
Ironically, the trades organized by Lerzer and Goering would be considered disastrous deals today. In one instance, 25 Impressionist and modern paintings were traded for just 2 tapestries and 1 old master.
Still life of Matisse.
Today, a painting like that by Matisse would be worth $5 million, $10 million.
Exactly.
Lerzer, however, recognized the enormous value of degenerate art on the world market and took every advantage of the immense treasure trove held at the Jeu de Paume.
For himself, sometimes he kept a few artworks which were despised at the time.
Right. He's making deals on the side besides what the Nazis are looting.
Always.
Do you think anyone knew what he was doing?
Yes, he was very cautious, but still didn't know Rosenberg was watching him.
The French resistance was aware of Lerzer's activities. Rose Valland, an underground operative working in the Jeu de Paume, kept a close watch on Lerzer and recorded his every move. Among Valland's notes, Robert finds a clue.
She talks here about Rosenberg.
Yes, he took some paintings from the collection Rosenberg, yeah.
It's compelling evidence that Bruno Lerzer seized paintings from the Paul Rosenberg collection. The question is, what did he do with them?
She notes it was taken out by Losey, but they were not brought back, and she's wondering where they're sold, where they're exchanged. Where did he put it afterwards? She doesn't know.
After the war, Lerzer was captured by the Allies in Germany. He testified against Goering at Nuremberg in exchange for clemency. Afterwards, he was extradited to France to face justice for his part in the Jeu de Paume operation.
There was an investigation, so he's locked up and did 5 years in prison in France.
On his release in 1950, he returned to Germany, where the unthinkable happened.
Normally, when you've done that, you should be the black sheep of the market, but him, no. I mean, he had some experience, he had some connection. He managed to get back into his business in Germany.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Lerzer settled in Munich and began working as an art advisor to wealthy collectors, including a number of his old Nazi colleagues.
He was, until he died, very much involved in his collection. He was an important operator, yes.
Bruno Lerzer remained a quiet fixture on the European art scene for the next 50 years, but was always pursued by rumors of stacks of stolen art from the war he had stashed away as a pension plan. He died in 2007 at the age of 96, perhaps taking with him the secret of what happened to the masterpieces looted from the Paul Rosenberg collection.
You've been investigating this for so many years now. Do you think that there's still paintings that he looted out there?
Well, we know that he had some stuff, but where did he put it afterwards? Who knows?
The investigation has taken the team from Paris to Washington, D.C. to Berlin. The hunt has shed new light on the millions of personal treasures and thousands of masterpieces looted from Paris that remain missing, and the continuing effort to recover them.
There's still tens of thousands of works floating around out there today. And in case you need any proof, take a look at this. An article from 2007 announcing the discovery of a safety deposit box in Switzerland that contained 14 priceless Impressionist paintings, including this painting by Camille Pissarro. one of the great post-impressionist painters. This painting worth millions of dollars. The owner of the safety deposit box? None other than Bruno, the art advisor to Hermann Goering, who had these paintings in this box for we don't know how long.
In addition to the Pizarro, Swiss authorities recovered 13 other paintings, including masterpieces by Renoir and Monet. But there was no sign of any artworks from the Paul Rosenberg collection. More alarming, investigators found evidence the locker had contained as many as 47 artworks, most removed and sold before the locker's discovery, and perhaps still circulating on the black market today.
This whole discovery just reinforces the fact that these works of art are surfacing, and our efforts and those of others are going to continue until we find the missing works of art from World War II.